Hi, and good afternoon, everybody. We're here from the Bureau of Student Wellness to talk about self-care. I'm going to give people just a minute to tune in to this session. Before I do that, I want to share our Facebook page. Obviously, if you're watching this, you found it. It's the Bureau of Student Wellness. We also have a YouTube page, NH Student Wellness. We're on Twitter at NH Schools, and we have a full resource website that we're filling out with different resources we've created or we've found or have been shared with us. That's nhlearnsremotely.com. So I am Molly. I'm from the Bureau of Student Wellness, and I'm here with two of my colleagues. Susan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Susan Ward. I am new to the Department of Education along with Molly. We started on the day of the pandemic. So welcome to us.
And I'm Katherine Leswing, and I'm also new to the Bureau of Student Wellness. Just came in a few months ahead of Molly and Susan.
Awesome. So like the title says, and like I was talking about, we're here to talk about self-care. So I think a lot of us are hearing about different self-care techniques and different things we can try while we're here, self-distancing from others. But we were just going to have an informal chat about, what's working for us, what isn't working for us, and some things we want to try. So I want to pose to my colleagues, what's some self-care that you guys have been, trying out in your homes?
That's a great question. Obviously, everything we hear and read and we see now, we're looking at how important self-care is. So especially now with the added stress that we have, not that we weren't already stressed before, but now we do have this added stress, and regardless of what that is, COVID-19 has certainly added stress to all of our lives. So I've been trying to really consciously make time for self-care, and I just kind of look at what meets my needs. So making sure I take, even if it's short, a walk in the morning. Then I also make sure if I don't get a chance to do it around lunchtime, after work, make sure I'm taking some time to go outside. The other day, I had a great round of hide and seek with my son and some friends, physically distanced, but it was better than I even realized. It was very therapeutic. So that really helped. So I'm looking forward to my next hide and seek game. But it was definitely helpful to just kind of play and forget things in the moment.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Katherine, any self-care tips that you have tried out?
Yeah, I love this topic, and I have a love-hate relationship with this topic. Actually, I feel like we are all getting sort of inundated with tips for self-care, and they kind of go in one ear and out the other, at least for me, even if I'm the person that's saying, hey, self-care is important. So at the same time, I realize how important it is for us, for every individual to get through this, to be engaging in some deliberate self-care. Susan, I've loved your sessions on self-care and talking about them being a deliberate act. And one of the ways that I've made it deliberate in my own life is by putting my exercise clothes on well before I intend to exercise. So that might even be during the workday. I'll put a nice blouse on overneath or over top, but because if I'm already kind of ready to go, I'm more likely to run out the door when the workday is over. If not, it's really easy for me to just say, well, maybe I'll start dinner now. Maybe I'll watch a show. Yeah, I second that thing, what you said, Susan, about getting outside. That's so important. Right before we jumped on, I bundled myself up and my son, and it's a little warmer now, so bundling might not be the right word, but we got outside and I didn't realize how much I needed that. And I really need to I won't use the word need, but I would like to do that more regularly because it's so important. And then the last piece is connecting on technology for fun purposes. I think many of us are on a lot of conference calls and Zoom calls now. But on the weekends, I've been connecting with my family. We do like a family. We use Google Hangouts, but we play games over Google Hangouts. So that's been really fun, to connect with my family in that way. Not just sort of a check-in, but we're actually like your hide and seek. It's
Yeah.
it's a game, and you get to forget about what's going on for a little bit, and it's just a nice release. So what about you, Molly?
That's awesome. I like both of those ideas. So I know I need to get outside in the sunshine, but I'm not always motivated to do so. So I've actually taken walks, but I take my cell phone with me and I call somebody that I really want to talk to. So it's like I'm walking with somebody, which motivates me to get outside. So, every day I kind of pick someone intentionally, a colleague that I haven't heard from in a while, a, family member, parent, and bother them for 15-20 minutes while I'm getting my exercise in. So that has worked for me to kind of combine the the need for vitamin D and getting outside, but also that need for some social interaction too.
Yeah.
That's great. Have you guys found anything that is not working when it comes to self-care?
Yeah.
That's a big yes.
I can go first on that one. Carving out time during the day or during sunlight hours for myself has been really challenging. I think a lot of people are probably experiencing that too. I mentioned earlier, I have a 1-year-old son, and my husband and I are both working from home, and that's great. We feel really fortunate to do it. But it also means that the work hours might be a little longer in the day because of childcare kind of creeping in during the day. And then so it feels kind of like there's always one or the other, it's either childcare or work, and where's the space for just a breath, but I think that that's something that I'm lucky to have a partner with me here, and maybe I can think more about doing that. I also think I haven't been able to read for pleasure, really. Like, been feeling really tired, and I think that's okay. I'm trying to be just like, okay, that's all right. You don't have the capacity for reading right now.
Yeah. So two things come to mind about, self-care not exactly working the way it's intended. I started doing stretches and yoga in the morning, but while it's like great physically, I find my mind is then free to wander to things that I don't necessarily want to be thinking about first thing in the morning. So, own personal stressors or things related to COVID. And so like while my body is being taken care of, my mind is actually kind of spiraling. So that really hasn't been working for me. And also being way more engaged in technology, I've found it's been harder for me to unplug too. So, while I am texting friends or checking in with family, I'm also, then going on to other social media apps and that kind of stuff. And I've found I haven't been thoughtful about my time on devices.
That makes sense. I think my struggle has definitely been sleep. I think even before this, I was a bit of an insomniac, and I know all of the important things about sleep to the point where I'm literally in bed by 9 o'clock reading a book to help myself just fall asleep. Melatonin, sleep meditation apps, you name it. I've tried it. But this added stress I find myself struggling a little bit more, and maybe not so much falling asleep, but staying asleep and waking up and having random thoughts at 2 o'clock in the morning, or random worries, or, with a little bit more on our plates as far as like the remote learning and things like that, did I send that email to the teacher? Or, just like all of those things that, you're sorting when you should be sleeping. And so I think, as far as self-care goes, that's probably been my biggest struggle before this, but definitely now. So I just keep trying to say to myself, you know what, tonight's a new night. Let's try something different, or let's get, to sleep a little earlier, or, try a different sleep meditation that might work. So.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that self-forgiveness and just being gentle with all of this, I totally relate to the sleep piece, to the technology piece, and like I said, I haven't been able to really read. And sometimes that can turn into, I should be doing this, or it should look like this. And I'm trying not to use the word should.
That's a really good point. And I think that's where the guilt creeps in. Like, I should be doing this. I've done that, like during that, I should be out there walking. When I see my neighbor jogging, I should be doing that too, but I'm not. But you're right, you know, just forgiving ourselves and saying, well, you know what, I can do this later. I can make sure I schedule time, get up a little earlier tomorrow to do it. Or, you know, carving out that time is with intention is definitely helpful. So
yeah, and then it feels like a success when it does happen, instead of on the days it doesn't happen, like, oh, I didn't do it, you know.
yeah.
Is there anything either of you would like to try with regard to self-care that you've heard about or that you haven't tried yet?
I think one thing that comes to mind is definitely creating things. I've seen people creating art and music and all these ways of kind of like externalizing their self-care. So I definitely want to find a way to do that, whether it be, you know, art to kind of represent what I'm going through now in this time, something physical that I can look back on, you know, once we get through this, because we'll all get through it, just have a memory of it.
I really love that idea. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. I've seen so many people create these wonderful either art pieces or try music a little bit. And yeah, I think I'm gonna add that to my bucket list. I think something I've wanted to try to get a little deeper into is meditation. I know there are so many resources, and sometimes I feel like if I'm not in the right headspace to try it, I have difficulty committing, you know, as one eye open, like, I can't focus right now, or I need to find a different time where it's quiet. And then of course there's the time aspect, like when is a good time and what time is going to work for me. And maybe just kind of learning more about meditation as a whole, and not just on an app that may or may not have the science behind it, but something that's really, you know, scientific based to, you know, so I can really kind of get behind why I'm doing what I'm doing. I do have done like the breathing exercises or the counting, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But I've tried different things that we've all done, but I want to do a little bit more and really just kind of create a routine so that I can go have that in my back pocket and go to it when I really need to.
Awesome. Well, you're going to like that little exercise that I lead us in just a second. But I think for me, my husband and I have this little passport book of the best hikes in New Hampshire. And we started filling it out last fall, but we haven't gotten through very many of the hikes at all. So I thought maybe this would be a good time, you know, each weekend almost, we could choose a different little hike to do, and fill out the passport. And then it kind of feels like a checklist, like we're accomplishing something on our bucket list during this time when a lot of us can't do some of the things we really like to do. So thank you for sharing all of the stuff. I learned a lot of new tips for myself to try and practice. Are you up for a little relaxation time before we close out here?
Definitely.
Always.
Awesome. Well, so like you were saying, Susan, I have been trying to get more into meditation too, and I've found it in times of stress, meditating is almost harder. It's harder to shut off the brain. Yes. And I have a tendency to just say, oh, well, it's not worth it if I can't shut off my brain. You know, if I can only pay attention or meditate for 1 minute, why bother? So this is a technique that helps me when I'm really kind of wound up, and when I sit down to meditate, I just have a hard time focusing only on the breath. And so it's very simple. It's the same way that you would meditate, but if you were to just sit still, but instead of sitting completely still, you will just hold your hands so you can get into a comfortable sitting position. We won't do this for very long, maybe just a few breaths, but you can put your palms face up on your legs if you want. And then when you breathe in, you'll just slowly, I don't know if you can see my arms yet, but you'll slowly move your arms up. And then as you breathe out, you'll move them back out. And so
okay.
you can do that with every breath, and then it just kind of gives the brain a little something else to focus on, rather than, oh, I have to focus on the inhale and the exhale, and now I'm thinking about, the lesson that I have to teach my son and changing diapers and getting this email out, so you can focus on, if nothing else, just raising and lowering the hands. So we can do a few breaths together. If you're at home and watching this and you want to take a break, you can do it with us. So we'll just start the first one, and you can really go at your own pace. Maybe we could end with one more breath in. One more out. Awesome. I never thought I would be meditating on Facebook Live, but here we are. And I think, when I do try meditation, guided meditation really, really helps me, especially in times of stress, like I said, because sometimes it's hard to turn down the noise. So I think that's all I have. Do either of you want to say anything else before we jump off?
Just want to say thanks so much for joining us today. Hopefully we will see you again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We do have our coffee chats, and at 3 p.m. we will either be coming to you or we will be featuring guest speakers this week and next week. So please make sure you like us on Facebook so that you get the notifications when we're live. Share this information with your friends, colleagues, families, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
All right. Have a great afternoon, ladies.
Bye. Thank you.